The Sumerians, more than 5,000 years ago, when most humans were still living in small tribes, a remarkable people changed the course of history forever. They built the world's first cities, created the earliest system of writing, and introduced laws, schools, and organized government. Without them, modern civilization as we know it might not exist. These pioneers lived between two great rivers in a land later called Mesopotamia. They were the Sumerians, the first truly civilized people on Earth. Today, we travel back to uncover how their ideas shaped humanity's past and still influence our present. The story of the Sumerians begins in an ancient region known as Mesopotamia, a Greek word meaning the land between two rivers. These two rivers were the Tigris and the Euphrates, flowing through what is now modern-day Iraq. Every year, these rivers flooded the land and left behind rich, fertile soil. This natural gift allowed the Sumerians to grow crops such as wheat and barley, leading to permanent settlement. Instead of moving from place to place, people began living together in one area, which gave rise to villages and later large cities. Some of the earliest cities in human history, including Ur, Uruk, Lagash, and Eridu, were built here. The fertile land, reliable water supply, and strategic location for trade made Mesopotamia the perfect birthplace of the world's first civilization. The Sumerians are described as the first civilization not simply because they lived long ago, but because they introduced a completely new way of human life. They were the first people to organize themselves into planned cities with streets, walls, and public buildings. These cities functioned as independent city-states, each with its own ruler, administration, and laws. Power was not random. It was structured and linked to both political authority and religious belief. The Sumerians developed specialized roles within society. Farmers produced food, craftsmen made tools and pottery, merchants carried goods to distant lands, and priests managed religious affairs. This division of labor made society more efficient and stable. Education also emerged as scribes were trained to read and write, something unknown in earlier human communities. Most importantly, the Sumerians established systems for record-keeping, justice, and governance, which allowed their society to function smoothly over generations. These features, organized cities, social structure, administration, and education, are the key elements of civilization. Because the Sumerians introduced all of these for the first time, historians rightly recognize them as the world's first civilized people. One of the most revolutionary contributions of the Sumerians was the invention of writing, a breakthrough that changed human history forever. To manage trade, property, and administration, they developed a writing system known as cuneiform. This system used small, wedge-shaped marks pressed into soft clay tablets with a reed stylus. At first, these symbols represented simple objects and numbers, allowing officials to keep accurate records. Over time, the system became more complex and was used to express ideas, laws, prayers, and literature. Writing made it possible to store knowledge beyond human memory and pass it from one generation to the next. Schools were established to train scribes, creating one of the earliest forms of formal education. Through cuneiform, the Sumerians transformed spoken language into permanent records, marking the true beginning of written history and organized knowledge. As Sumerian cities grew larger and more complex, they required strong systems of government and law to maintain order. Each city-state was governed by a ruler, often called a king, who was believed to govern with the approval of the gods. This belief gave political authority a religious foundation, making obedience a moral duty as well as a civic one. Administration was carried out by officials who supervised irrigation, collected taxes, and organized public works. Laws were created to regulate daily life, settle disputes, and protect property. Although these laws were not yet fully written codes like those of later civilizations, they established clear rules for justice and responsibility. Punishments and rewards were based on social roles, reflecting a structured society. Sumerian society itself was arranged in clear layers. At the top were rulers and priests, followed by merchants, artisans, and skilled workers. Farmers and laborers formed the largest group, supporting the entire system through agriculture and construction. This organized social order allowed Sumerian cities to function efficiently and remain stable for long periods, setting a lasting model for governance in future civilizations. Religion shaped almost every aspect of Sumerian life and deeply influenced how people understood the world around them. The Sumerians believed in many gods, each controlling different forces of nature such as the sky, wind, rain, fertility, and war. They thought these gods were powerful, unpredictable, and closely involved in human affairs. Natural disasters like floods or droughts were seen as signs of divine pleasure or anger. Each city-state considered one god or goddess as its patron deity, and serving that deity was a civic duty. Religious rituals, festivals, and offerings were performed daily to gain the god's favor and protection. Priests held great influence because they acted as intermediaries between humans and the divine. At the center of every major city stood a massive religious structure called a ziggurat. These step-like towers rose high above the city and symbolized a link between heaven and earth. The temple at the top was believed to be the dwelling place of the city's god. Ziggurats were not only places of worship, but also powerful symbols of unity, faith, and authority within Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians were practical innovators who used knowledge to solve everyday problems and improve their quality of life. One of their most important achievements was the development of advanced farming techniques. They built canals, dams, and irrigation channels to control river water and protect crops from unpredictable floods. The system ensured food surplus, which supported large populations and urban growth. In technology, the Sumerians introduced tools that transformed human activity. The wheel improved transportation and trade, while the plow increased agricultural efficiency. They also made progress in mathematics by creating a number system based on 60, a system still used today to measure time and angles. Astronomy was practiced to track seasons and plan farming cycles, leading to early calendars. Daily life in Sumerian cities was active and organized. People lived in mud brick houses, worked as farmers, builders, traders, or craftsmen, and exchanged goods through local and long-distance trade. Music, storytelling, and games were part of social life. Through innovation and discipline, the Sumerians built a society that balanced practical knowledge with cultural expression. Despite their remarkable achievements, the Sumerian civilization did not last forever. Over time, several challenges weakened their city-states and made them vulnerable. One major problem was constant conflict. Sumerian cities often fought each other over land, water rights, and political dominance. These internal wars drained resources and reduced stability. Environmental difficulties also played a serious role. Continuous irrigation, while useful for farming, gradually increased soil salinity, reducing crop productivity. As harvest declined, food shortages became more common, putting pressure on the population. At the same time, Sumer faced threats from outside groups. Stronger and more organized peoples from surrounding regions began to invade Mesopotamia. Around 2300 BCE, the Sumerian city-states were conquered by the Akkadians under the leadership of Sargon of Akkad. Although the Sumerians lost political control, they were not erased completely. Their language, customs, and knowledge continued to influence the new rulers. The decline of Sumer was not a sudden collapse, but a gradual transformation. Power changed hands, but the foundations laid by the Sumerians remained embedded in the civilizations that followed on. Even after their decline, the Sumerians left a legacy that shaped human history for thousands of years. Their inventions, ideas, and systems influenced every civilization that followed in Mesopotamia and beyond. The invention of writing, cuneiform, allowed humans to record events, trade, laws, and knowledge, creating the first permanent history. Without it, the stories, laws, and achievements of early societies might have been lost forever. The Sumerians also set the foundation for organized government and law. Their city-states, structured administration, and legal practices became models for later civilizations, such as the Babylonians and Assyrians. Their innovations in agriculture, irrigation, and engineering helped humans transform natural landscapes into productive farmland. Even the wheel, plow, and early mathematics, including their 60-based system, remain part of daily life today in measuring time and angles. Religion, architecture, and culture were also lasting contributions. Ziggurats influenced monumental architecture, while their stories, myths, and educational systems inspired later cultures. In short, the Sumerians were more than a people of the past. They were the pioneers of civilization, whose ideas and inventions continue to shape the world we live in. They truly earned their place as the first civilized people on Earth.